It was the type of murder scene that law enforcement could never forget. 3 young boys, all brothers, all gone, shot and killed execution style, hunted down in their home by a cold-blooded killer, their own father. Now, after more than a year of court developments and the possibility of a death penalty, Chad Doerman appeared in court for a surprise plea deal. Tonight, we're bringing you the emotional moments from inside the courtroom as Chad Doerman pleads guilty to the murders of 4-year-old Hunter, 7-year-old Clayton, and 3-year-old Chase. Good evening and welcome to this hour of closing arguments. I'm Ted Rowlands, filling in for Vinnie Politan tonight. Today, the accused man, dad, accused of shooting his own kids. This is a story that just rocked the entire country when it happened last year. Well, today, he pled guilty in court. You remember the story. June of last year, Chad Doerman came home from work, grabbed his rifle, and shot all 3 of his sons in the head. The boys, just 3, 4, and 7 years old. We're going to watch the emotional sentencing hearing tonight. Even the prosecutor at one point seemed to be close to breaking down at times. It was so emotional. We're going to start the hour, though, with Court TV anchor Julie Grant with the story leading up to the story today.
911, where's your emergency?
June 15th, 2023, residents in rural Claremont County, Ohio, call 911 after hearing gunshots at a neighbor's home.
There's a girl running down the street beating her stepbrother and killing everyone in her family.
First responders race to the house and make a horrifying discovery.
3 children have been shot, not breathing.
Police found the bodies of 3 young brothers lying in the front yard. 7-year-old Clayton, 4-year-old Hunter, and 3-year-old Chase. Their father, 32-year-old Chad Dorman, was sitting on the front steps when officers arrived.
Stand up! Stand the up! Get your hand.
Yeah, the rifleman solid.
Investigators say all 3 boys were shot in the head.
State of Arts is Chad Doerman, 2023 CRA 1975.
Chad Doerman stood silently in the courtroom as the prosecutor described the death of one of his sons.
We know that one of the boys was able to flee into a field near the home. And again, we know from his admission, father hunted that boy down, drug him back to the property, and executed him in front of witnesses.
Prosecutors were planning to seek the death penalty for Dorman, who was charged with aggravated murder, kidnapping, and assault.
At today's hearing, Dorman made it clear to the judge that he understood everything that comes with entering his guilty plea before the judge ultimately handed down his sentence. Take a listen.
Mr. Dorman is going to be entering a plea of guilty to 3 counts of aggravated murder. And there were aggravating circumstances returned on all of those, which obviously made him eligible for the death penalty. The state, as part of the plea agreement, which will be discussed shortly, has dismissed those 9, all the aggravated circumstances in each of the 9 aggravated murder counts. So those aggravated circumstances have been dismissed. That entry has been filed with the clerk and is a record. So consequently, this is no longer considered a capital case. In addition to pleading guilty to counts 1, 2, and 3, you and the state are recommending what I refer to as a jointly recommended agreed sentence as to these 3 counts, and I'll discuss the other 2 momentarily. In each of these 3 counts, you agree that the court will impose today a sentence of life in prison without the chance of parole for count 1, the same sentence in count 2, and the same sentence in count 3. And all of these sentences will be served consecutively with one another. That may sound somewhat unusual because life without parole is life without parole. But essentially, they're being ordered to be served consecutively so that It is unmistakably clear that you will spend the rest of your life in prison with no chance for parole. So you understand those sentences and the consequences of those sentences. Yes, sir.
There it is, 3 life sentences without the possibility of parole, plus an additional 16 years for counts 18 and 20. All will be served consecutively. Safe to say he is never leaving the correctional system in the state of Ohio. Joining us tonight, national trial attorney, big case Mike, there he is, Michael Jafer. Happy Friday to you, but what a horrible case this is, and what a day in that courtroom. You look at those kids, and their life is taken by their father in such an egregious way. I'm sure some people are thinking, of all people, this guy deserves a death penalty. But Mom released a statement today saying that they are absolutely in agreement with the state here for this deal. Your thoughts?
You literally just finished my sentence before I even said it. That's exactly what happened. So just so the viewers can see behind the scenes what happens with these types of conversations. When the defense counsel was appointed, the first thing that the defense counsel did was call the prosecutor and say, I got to come talk to you. I'm going to be their attorney. I really don't want to try this case. And the prosecutor would have came back and said, this is so heinous, I also don't want to try the case. But even though it's up to me, I've got to get the consent of the mother first. Let me see if the mother's on board. And then the prosecutor would have called the mother and told the mother, look, I'll do whatever you want me to do. I have a 99% likelihood that I'll get him sentenced to death if you want me to. But we'd be putting you and this community through a trial. Are you okay with me sending him literally into a hole where not only will he never see the light of day again, he literally will not see the sun again. We will also put him on suicide protocol so that he cannot even take his own life and excuse himself from the torment that the jail will give him. I could do that. Which one of those two do you want me to do? And then the mother would have had to tell the prosecutor, you know what, I would rather go through door number 2. If I'm not going to die and be released from this pain, I don't want him to die and be released from the pain. Put him on suicide protocol, put him in jail for the rest of his life. But it wasn't done yet, Ted. Because after those two bodies agreed, the state of Ohio through the prosecutor and the family through the mother, a third body had to agree, and that's the court through the judge. That judge could have thrown up that deal, but the fact that even the judge went forward without even having to take it under advisement, that shows you that that entire community did not want to go through that case. Everybody made the right decision, and so that's why you had this plea, and that's why the judge accepted it.
Yeah, and you never know with a death case as well. You can go through all of that, force the families to go through it. Laura Doerman, is the wife, and she has a daughter who is also involved in this. At the end of the day, jury could easily come back and say no to the death penalty because it is so difficult to impose the death penalty. And the defense would have been vigorous, bringing up a mental episode. We already saw indications of that going in. We're going to talk about this a little later in the hour with a professional, but in your experience, what's life going to look like for him in prison?
He's going to be on suicide protocol probably for the rest of his life. He's going to be in solitary confinement. They're going to send him to a maximum security prison. He's going to be. So when you visit a prison, there are the inmates that have privileges. They can go to the vending machine. They can have family visit them. He's not going to be in that. He's going to be in a level 5 maximum security prison. He's not going to have any privileges. He's going to be in shackles for the rest of his life, because there's nothing more egregious. Now, he will receive treatment, and there will also be many universities, I think at least 1 or 2 universities that will want to study his mind in order to see if they can come up with a reason to prevent this from happening in the future, right? If you could get into the mind of an individual like this and see how black and dark the hole is, perhaps you could get mental health treatment for people in the future, because this is not the last time this is going to happen. It's not the first time that could happen. So life for him in prison will be different than any other murderer. He will be a source of study, in my opinion, by at least 1 or 2 universities, some psychiatric wards. People will study this guy, but I think I'm pretty confident his life in prison is going to be the worst type of existence you could have. Death is going to be better than the existence he's going to have, and he's lucky that he didn't get sentenced to death.
For the attorneys that representing him and even the prosecutors, because we're going to listen to the prosecutor who basically is holding his emotions in check during this hearing today, just detailing the case. Everyone in the room, you kind of alluded to it, they're looking at the discovery, they're seeing the horrible images and of these 3 little boys and what happened to them and the way it took place, the fear that they must have felt, realizing their own father, the guy who was, going to Little League practice with them, is now at the other end of a rifle. How difficult? I know you've seen a lot. Are there a few that rock your world still?
Yes. When I first started analyzing cases on Court TV, I asked all you guys, how do you guys deal with, covering some of these cases, right? And I got advice from other people. I stopped trying criminal cases about 10 years ago because, and I never had a client who'd murdered their own children, right? But I was aware of cases where they were, because I would really try some very jarring cases and defend people that at the end of the day, I did not want to defend, but I did it. And even as a public defender, kind of didn't have a choice in some instances. But if you see that even the confession that he had was thrown out because his constitutional rights were violated by the police officers, why? You rarely see that. Why? Because no one is equipped to deal with a situation like this. No police officer, no prosecutor, no judge, no one's equipped to deal with it. We're equipped to deal with murder, capital crimes, capital offenses. We're just not equipped to deal. No human being is equipped. If you are equipped to deal with something like this, then you've had a horrendous life, right? And so nobody's ready to deal with something like this, which is why, in my opinion, this deal was done quickly, was done quietly, and it was pushed through. Nobody objected. Again, 3 bodies had to consent to this, and all 3 bodies consented. Yeah. So
it's very rare. 1 year, just 1 year later, triple murder has been adjudicated. Michael Jafford, thank you. Enjoy your weekend. We really appreciate it. When we come back, the prosecutor on the case gets emotional as he walks through the horrific events of the day of the murders. Stay with us.
He would just turn to me and he says to me in the middle of the game, "Hey, Coach, you want to come over to my house and watch some fireworks and go swimming this weekend?"
They got along really well for 3 siblings. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's always sibling rivalry, but those boys were always supporting each other.
Those were members of the Dorman community in Claremont County, Ohio, during a vigil for the 3 young boys whose lives were taken by their now convicted father. Today, in a surprise plea deal, Chad Doerman pled guilty to all counts of aggravated murder, kidnapping, and felonious assault for last year's murders of his sons. As a result, he will not face the death penalty, but will spend the rest of his life behind bars without any possibility of parole. During today's hearing, the prosecuting attorney appeared to be choked up as he tried to recount the grueling details of the events that transpired on that summer day last year. The boys lost their lives. Take a listen to a guy who knows this case very well talk about it in court today.
On that date, Judge, June 15, 2023, the defendant returned home early from work and had his family, including his wife, Laura Dorman, with him. All 3 of the boys joined him in the master bedroom for a nap. At some point after lying down with the 4 of them, the defendant got out of bed, opened a gun safe that was next to the bed, removed a Marlin Model AC-22 rifle from the gun safe and loaded the magazine. The defendant shot his son, Hunter Dorman, twice while in the bedroom. His wife, Laura, began to render aid to Hunter and yelled for the other children to run. Laura's 14-year-old daughter, Alexis, who had been watching television in the family room, made her way to the master bedroom and witnessed the killing of Hunter. Alexis immediately began to run and indicated that Chasen had fled out the back door. Clayton had fled out the back door and that Chad Dorman was following Clayton. She ran to help to try to protect Clayton. Anyway, the 3 of them go out the back door. Clayton's first, then there's the defendant, and then Alexis. Alexis witnesses The defendant chased after Clayton, raised his rifle, fired numerous shots at Clayton as he fled, and saw Clayton fall in the field after he was struck by gunfire. Alexis then watched as the defendant approached Clayton while he's injured, lying on the ground, defenseless, and saw the defendant put a bullet in Clayton's head, killing him. The defendant, Alexis then, Your Honor, ran back and fled into the residence where she picked up the youngest child, the little 3-year-old boy, Chase Doerman. She attempted to flee the residence with Chase to protect him, but the defendant saw her crossing the yard. The defendant gave chase, pointed the rifle directly at Alexis' head, and threatened to shoot Alexis if she did not drop Chase. Alexis put Chase down. He's crying the whole time. The defendant then pointed the firearm at Chase's head, but it just clicked. The magazine was empty. Alexis begged for the defendant not to shoot her. Chase then saw his mother, who had come outside at some point, trying to render aid to Hunter. So Chase runs to his mom. And then there's a very difficult situation that evolved where Laura and the defendant struggled over the weapon. Laura was bitten as she tried to protect Chase from the defendant. The defendant bit her. She put her thumb over the end of the barrel in an effort to stop the bullet. She was shot in the thumb. Ultimately, she had to drop Chase. During this point in time, the defendant was able to reload the firearm and pointed the gun at Chase's head and executed him one round to his skull.
Oof. So difficult to listen to that and to hear his emotion. This is the prosecutor who knows this case backwards and forwards and is having a tough time talking about it in the courtroom during today's sentencing hearing where Chad Doerman pled guilty. Joining us to talk more about it, psychotherapist and CEO of Life Counseling Solutions, Dr. Janie Lacey, and forensic psychiatrist, trial expert, and our good friend Carol Lieberman. This is so hard to listen to. Even the prosecutors breaking down the details of this case. JD, the family, mom and daughter Alexis, they're going to live with this obviously forever. How do you recover from something like this? Or can you?
You don't recover. They will learn to live with this trauma and this tragedy and the memories of these beloved 3 young boys that didn't even have a chance. And the replay that their life was taken by the person who should have protected them and loved them and been their safety, and this being their last memory. Mom and sister are going to need a lot of support because there is no getting over, right? So there can be a level at some point where they can give back and help other people that may have similar situations. But their biggest thing that anyone can do that knows this family is to provide them with love and support and resources and just be there for them, because this is forever has changed their life. So there is no recovery.
Carol, what possibly could have happened here? There had to have been signs, warning signs, or no? Do people snap?
Well, I think that he was definitely mentally ill. The standard of he originally tried to get, first he pled not guilty, then he wanted to be not guilty by reason of insanity, and they were going to go for a severe mental illness hearing on Monday. And I don't know why they didn't go through with that. Apparently, according to the attorney, there were one or two psychologists on the side of the defense and one on the side for the state, and they couldn't agree. Like they couldn't agree on whether he knew what he was doing was wrong. And I mean, that really bothers me. I've done a ton of, well, maybe not a ton, but I've done a lot of murder cases as an expert witness, and there's a fine line. It's often the battle of the experts, but it's the jury who gets to hear the experts and what the experts base their decision on, and to decide, whether they think the person was not guilty, was insane at the time of the crime or not. This leaves me very uncomfortable with, we don't really know, what they were basing up on in apparently in Ohio, and they need to be either schizophrenic, schizoaffective, or delusional disorder, or bipolar. And I think he would have fit into one of those categories.
All right, we need a break. You guys are going to stay with us. We will be back. We're going to hear the victim impact statements next.
Join Court TV's Vinnie Politan.
In every story, in every trial, every case, there's at least two sides to it.
To dive into the latest.
Oh my God.
And breaking true crime stories.
This was a very targeted, very personal attack.
Inside.
I've never seen that in a discovery. I've been incarcerated 3 years.
And outside of the courtroom.
She's a psychopath.
Now, let's look at the other side of all of that.
Vinnie Politan Investigates. Weeknights, 9/8 Central. Only on Court TV.
Chad, I trusted you with my life. And honestly, I looked up to you more than anyone. And I always wanted to make sure that I was making you proud for whatever I accomplished in life. But most of all, I saw you as my dad, not just a stepdad. I am the person who I am today because of you. And no matter what anyone says, you raised me well, and you gave me an amazing life, and I will forever be grateful for the memories and time you spent with me.
Welcome back to Closing Arguments. I'm Ted Rowlands, filling in for Vinnie Politan this evening. That was a portion of Chad Doerman's stepdaughter's victim impact statement read in the Ohio courtroom today as we continue our coverage of the father who is now convicted in the murders of his 3 young sons. Doerman entered a guilty plea on all charges after the execution-style killings that took place in June of 2023. And though he will not face the death penalty, he will spend the rest of his life in prison without the possibility of parole. The 2 witnesses to the murders, Dorman's stepdaughter, Alexis, and his wife, Laura, wrote victim impact statements to be read by prosecutors in court. Our cameras were in the courtroom. They didn't allow us to show any of the victims' faces, but in their prepared statements, they emphasized how neither of their lives will ever be the same.
Ever since what you've done, my life has been something I would never wish upon any family. It is the most heartbreaking and emotional thing anyone could go through. Chad, I miss you, and I miss the boys dearly, and nothing will ever be the same again because of you. Whenever something exciting happens, I always just want to tell you, because I know you would be so proud of me. Softball to me isn't the same anymore, because that was our sport, and that was the boys' sport. You made me an amazing ball player, and whenever I play softball, there isn't one game where I don't think about you. And whenever I get a good hit or I learn a new pitch, I always wish I could tell you, because I know you would be so proud of me. And when good things like that happen, it sucks to look on the sideline and not see you be there, and for the boys not to be cheering me on like they always did. And Chad, I still work very hard on my grades. And I was on the honor roll this past year. And I know for a fact, if you were there to see it, you would be so happy for me because my grades have always been so important to me. Another thing that has impacted me was every single holiday. Waking up on Christmas isn't the same anymore. I don't get excited. I don't even look forward to having presents because it's not the same. I don't get to wake up early and wake the boys up. I don't get to hide the elf. I don't get to do any of the fun stuff anymore because they're gone and you took their lives. On June 15th, 2023, my life was changed forever. My life was ripped away from me and destroyed. Since that day, I have spent every day grieving the loss of my 3 sweet, so very little sons. I grieve the loss of Clayton, Hunter, and Chase every single day, and I grieve the life that they did not get to live. I no longer get to raise them and watch them grow. I miss each one of them so very much. I miss their laughter, silliness, love, and joy for life. Where there used to be so much laughter, happiness, noise of rowdy little boys, there is now silence and emptiness. I would do anything to push them on the swing, cover them up one more time, and hear their little ways of saying, I love you. All of it gone when I should have had so much more life left to live with them. I ask myself how a mother is supposed to carry on a life as a mom with 1 child left here on earth and 3 gone forever. I struggle every day with the will to get up or give up. Life for me is the true pain and suffering. I will never agree to think that any form of punishment could amount to the form of torture and suffering I have to endure each day. Such as seeing children and seeing siblings together as I watch Alexis be without her brothers, and seeing families together as I no longer have mine. Having to live a life where I'm visiting the same places I once was with Clayton, Hunter, and Chase all together. Traveling in the car and no longer seeing them in the rearview mirror. This also includes our family home that holds so many memories that I cannot let go of. But now it's just a devastating to face. Again, so empty and quiet.
Still with us, Dr. Janie Lacey and Dr. Carol Lieberman. Dr. Lacey, you can hear the pain, and this was read in court. These were their words, but these were read by a prosecutor or someone with the prosecution in the office. What did you hear there?
You know, I heard that there was a life that the mom and the stepdaughter talked about, their attachment, their family life, their memories. I mean, all of the things that got ripped from them, and living those memories and the emptiness and the void that they feel and the trauma that they have to replay in their mind over and over and over again, the devastating effect that they've seen firsthand, what happened to those sweet little boys. But you also heard in the stepdaughters that she was attached to him as her father. She has good memories, that he almost had like what we would consider the split self.
that he had this part of him that was very engaged, that she felt very important, and they had a normal family life from what they were describing. So the dichotomous nature that occurred, you know, it's going to take some time, a long time, to really make some sense on how they can move forward in their life. But I did hear that there was some normacy to their family life, and there's a split nature where their life is forever changed.
Yeah, Carol, I mean, she was still talking about, you know, wanting to impress him with her grades. There wasn't the, you know, anger that you might think would pour out of there. What were your takeaways?
Yes, I mean, it really did show such a difference, such a contrast. Not the father that they described wasn't the father who would do this. You know, they talked about such family moments, you know, like Norman Rockwell paintings, really wholesome. And the daughter said that she would never forgive him, but she wouldn't hate him. You know, there was such warmth there. Of course they're furious, and of course it was tragic. And I mean, it's just so a really emotional kind of dramatic kind of crime and horror to this family. But I keep, you know, thinking that, I'm not saying that he should have gotten out or anything like that, but they should have gone to this SMI hearing and had a chance to talk about his mental illness. I mean, that's the thing. There was some kind of a break, whether it was schizophrenic break, bipolar, I don't know. But something happened, like supposedly he was planning this since October. But, you know, you could take that, well, you see, this was premeditated. But it seems like he was really wrestling with himself since October, whether he should do this. And he had a feeling like he was being told, you know, he talked about the Bible, that in the Bible it tells you to kill your first son first, and then your second, and then your third, and then actually your wife is supposed to be first. I mean, he was following these religious delusional kinds of ideas, and he said lots of things that showed some kind of mental illness. He said, for example, I mean, of course, when he was walking around before he shot them, and he said, "Chad knows what's right," holding a Bible. So that was saying something, that he was believing something, that he was doing something right according to the way he interpreted the Bible. Mm-hmm. And then when he was asking for a lawyer, and he asked for Keith Dorman, his father, and Ruby Franklin, who he said was a CIA agent. And then he was saying, "What did I do? And where's the cameras?" I mean, so many utterings.
Right, yeah,
really
there was definitely felt like mental illness. Today, the defense attorney actually articulated that to the court, saying, "Hey, this guy is mentally ill. Let's take a listen."
Chad would never have done that, except that he was delusional. He was in psychosis when this happened. All three psychologists basically acknowledged that. Dr. Dreyer acknowledged it. They don't agree on whether it qualifies as long enough for serious mental illness, or whether he had some appreciation of the legal wrongfulness of what he did. But the fact is, he loved those boys more than anything. And he was ill. He was sick, profoundly sick at the time. There's nothing more he can say at this point except that he's sorry about that. He did it. He acknowledges that. He's taking responsibility for it. He can't bring those boys back to do anything to do it. I think he would wish that he stayed at the little clinic for a little longer than he did. I think he wished that, in hindsight, he put signs there before this happened. He tried to power through it. He wouldn't do that again. And until it was too late, he couldn't. He was out of control.
Dr. Lacey, what do you take from that? And when you add in the victim impact statements, there does seem to be a universal acknowledgement that he is suffering from mental illness.
Well, I would say there's no doubt that a father who would take the life of his 3 young children, that waking them up out of their sleep and would hunt one down, that we would know that there's something not right here. We know that this is not normal. So when we kind of bring that into the picture, level of psychosis or mental health issues, mental illness, we would want to understand his mind so that we can help prevent and educate something like this from happening in the future. So when we look at it universally, we do want to take these things into consideration so we can learn from them and prevent this tragedy from happening to other families in the future.
Yeah, and to Carol's point, it's almost too bad that portion of the process didn't go through with so that everybody could see what was going on and mentally, and then hear the experts and what they believed, because if someone's living with someone who is going through this, that prevention, and knowing what to do is the key here. Thank you very much, Dr. Carol Lieberman, Dr. Janie Lacey. Coming up after the break, Chad Doerman will spend the rest of his natural life behind bars. What is that going to look like for him? We're going to bring in a prison consultant for a breakdown of what Dorman can expect for the rest of his life.
One of the most successful true crime TV shows ever.
This is crazy.
Now has a new home on America's original true crime obsession, 48 Hours on Court TV. Coming up next on Court TV. Sunday, August 11th, the season finale of Accomplice to Murder.
The horrors they uncovered are horrors not even inflicted upon prisoners of war.
Accomplice to Murder with Vinnie Politan. Season finale, Sunday, August 11th, 8/7 Central, only on Court TV.
As to count one, aggravated murder in violation of 290301A, an unclassified felony. How do you plead?
Guilty.
Count two, aggravated murder in violation of 290301A, an unclassified felony. How do you plead?
Guilty.
Count three, aggravated murder in violation of 290301A, an unclassified felony. How do you plead?
Guilty.
Count 18, felonious assault in violation of 290311A2. How do you plead?
Guilty.
And count 20, felonious assault in violation of 290311A2. How do you plead?
Guilty.
Chad Doerman entering guilty pleas on aggravated murder charges today in the shooting deaths of his 3 young sons. Along with that guilty plea came the judge's sentence for Dorman. As part of the deal, he will not face the death penalty in any capacity.
You agree that the court will impose today a sentence of life in prison without the chance of parole for count 1, the same sentence in count 2, and the same sentence in count 3. And all of these sentences will be served consecutively with one another. As to counts 18 and 20, they are second-degree felony offenses, and the jointly recommended agreed prison term as to each of these 2 counts is a minimum of 8 years on each count. Each minimum sentence will be served consecutively with one another, so I total those to arrive at a total minimum prison term of 16 years. Obviously, that 16 to 20 years it's going to be served consecutively as well, but it will be totally consumed, if you will, by the life without parole prison sentence, which is why we are eliminating any reference to potential early release date, because it's a vain act. There is no early release date for you. You understand that?
Before today's plea agreement, Dorman was facing 21 felony charges. The last remaining question, of course, now is, what's it going to look like for a guy like this in a prison? What is his life going to be like? Let's bring in our expert joining us, founder of Wall Street Prison Consulting. Larry Levine is with us. Larry, this is an interesting case because he's not like a child molester. He's got some mental illness. He killed his own kids.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't?
I listened to his guilty pleas,
yeah.
And he sounds normal. He doesn't sound like he's crazy. I was on Con Air, that's the prison plane, and I was chained up next to a serial killer for like five hours, and this guy seemed as normal as you or I. But once you get inside, and remember, he's sitting in a county jail right now. He's probably locked down a lot. When you get into a real prison, it's kind of like a social experience because you're living around people and you're getting out. People hate, they hate rats, they hate informants, and they hate people that play with kids. So it doesn't matter if he's a child molester and somebody in there, I mean, he may go over to, the Ohio State Penitentiary in Youngstown, maybe Southern Ohio Correctional, which is a maximum, in Lucasville, maybe Mansfield, which is closed custody. You're going to have a lot of people in there that are violent offenders like him, and you're going to have some gang members. Now, just imagine you're in prison, you know you're never getting out. Okay, I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about the people that are in there with him. And some kid is going to come along, probably a gang member, and they're going to take maybe a toothbrush, a piece of glass. They'll break some steel off a bunk. I mean, I was at 11 different prisons. When there was a riot, I saw people digging weapons up from the ground. What I see is somebody sticking this guy, and I mean, how old is he?
He's in his 40s, I believe. He's got a long life to go.
Well, you know what? Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. You know, life as he knows, as I said, it's changed. He's not going to have that social experience, and he's going to be isolated among the population. You know, his spending limit to go to the commissary, $150 to $200 a month. He can buy snacks and, you know, cupcakes and candy bars, potato chips. He may not want to go to the dining hall. He will be ridiculed by people. And he's probably going to live in a cell. They're not going to put this guy in a dormitory.
He's 33, by the way. He's 33, by the way. What if he makes it through the first 3, 4, 5 years, then will he be fine?
No, because there's always people, they transfer people a lot. When there's a disciplinary problem, they just move people around. Remember, this isn't like a club fed somewhere. These people are never, ever, ever getting out. I mean, he could get some visits. Contact visits are like between 30 minutes and 2 hours. He can get video visits, but who's really going to come and see him? I think this guy's going to be in isolation. Maybe while he's in there, he'll find Jesus or something. These people tend to do this. What kind of job? You can't have, okay, he's going to need like close supervision. You're not going to be able to send him with a work detail without a cop, a correctional officer nearby, because somebody's going to try to do something to him. Is he a big guy? I haven't seen him. Is he a really big guy?
Fit, not big.
Fit, not big. Okay. So 2 or 3 people take him into the showers or wherever, put a blanket over his head and beat the crap out of him. I mean, if I was there, I'd do it. I'd beat the crap out of him. Everybody has kids, nieces, nephews, grandchildren. These people are the outcasts. So his life is going to be a series of 5-minute phone calls, maybe a visit every now and then, a visit from his lawyer. I don't think they're going to do an appeal because he agreed to the sentence.
No, it's over.
He's never getting out. I mean, it's ridiculous. They ran it consecutive. So all they did was waste the taxpayers' money. They really just needed to give him one sentence. The guy is never getting out. He's going to leave in a pine box. You know, I hope he has a very, very short, painful life and that someone take care of him the right way. You know what? Take care of him the right way, and he'll have early checkout. You follow what I'm saying?
I hear you, Larry. All right, thanks, Larry. We got to run. Before we go, though, take a look at this photo. This is Matthew McCaldy. He's 16 years old. He was last seen on July 25th in Phoenix, Arizona. If you have any information about where Matthew is, call the Phoenix Police Department at 1-602-262-6151, or you can always call 1-800-THE-LOST. Let's see if we can get Matthew to a safe place on this Friday night. Thanks for joining us on Closing Arguments. I'm Ted Rowlands, in for Vinny. Have a great weekend.